Kshurikopanishad, Kshurika Upanishad. Kshurikopanishad belongs to the Krishna Yajurveda and contains 22 mantras. And of course, the last two are the phalam. So the entire Upanishad has 24 mantras belonging to the Krishna Yajurveda. Kshurika means a small knife, a cutting knife. And the Upanishad is named as Kshurika Upanishad because, like a small knife used to cut, the techniques, the philosophy, the teaching of the Kshurika Upanishad also cuts the bondages, cuts the obstacles on the path of yoga, removes various difficulties, obstructions on the path of meditation. That is how that cutting asunder with a tool, the Kshurika. And this is a wonderful Upanishad explaining the exact correct method, techniques of practicing many of well-known practices common in the field of yoga. And yoga adhikaraha, the Upanishad opens with adhikara, the eligible criteria of the practitioner. Kshurikam sampravakshyami dharanam yoga siddhaye yam prapya napunarjanma yoga yuktasya jayate veda tattvartha vihitam yadhoktam hi swayambhuva. That is, the Kshurika, that is the knife, the meditation, the focusing of the mind itself is treated or made as a Kshurika to cut its own bondages. The mind itself will be cutting its own bondages for the attainment of the yoga. And the import of the Vedas, the Swayambhu, is the attainment level. And what are the techniques explained in the Kshurikopanishad? A very common, well-known practices: Asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and Samadhi. Then the yoga sadhana, adhikari, and the results of the Samadhi. This is how the Upanishads proceeds, opening up with the practice of asana and pranayama. Nishabdam desham asthaya tatra asanam avistitaha kurmonganiva samhatya manohridi niruddhyacha matra dvadasha yogena pranavena shanai shanaihi purayet sarvamatmanam sarvadvaram niruddhyacha uromukha katigrivam kimchit muntamam pranan sandharayet tasmin nasabhyantaracharinaha bhutva tatra yatah pranaha shanairdhva sa mucha. Means how asana and pranayama are to be practiced. A wonderful opening, clarity for many of the yoga sadhakas, yoga practitioners, yoga teachers, yoga students. How an asana and pranayama has to be practiced. Nishabdam deshamasthaya. One should sit in a secluded, silent place, taking up a suitable posture. Then, kurmongani vasamhatya manohridi niruddhyacha. Withdraw the sense of organs, just like a tortoise withdraws its limbs, controlling the mind in the heart. And then one should fill his entire body by degrees, shanai shanaihi, with 12 matras. We should always remember a matra whenever it is referred in yoga, especially in the context of pranayama. It is a unit of a time. In the time of inhalation and time of exhalation. The Upanishad puts it, Matra dvadasha yogena pranavena shanai shanaihi. Slowly, slowly, slowly inhaling for 12 matras along with the Omkara, Pranava. That is, a manasika omkara japa while inhaling for 12 matras. For all our convenience, we can easily say one matra is a second or 1.5 seconds. Then, after that, filling that, Omkara with the 48 mantras of Vayu in all, and after blocking up all the doors, that means shutting entire body free from all the disturbances, it is to be stabilized. Fix it. Sthiram, Sukham, as Maharishi Patanjali describes in the Yoga Sutras. And then the prana is going inside without any jerks. Steadily it is going inside. Then gently Shanaihi Riddha Sa Muchavaset. Uchvaset means slowly, gently exhale. This is how pranayama and asana has to be practiced. It clears all our doubts and all our concepts, ideas, techniques. Because the Kshurika Upanishad's practice of asana and pranayama, or the practice of the Kshurika Dharana, concentration, has a cutting knife as a tool. Then pratyaharaha. Sthiramatmadrudham kritva angusthena samahitaha dve gulfetu prakturvartitaha janghe chaiva trayastrayaha. All the sense organs are controlled. Pratyaharaha it is. And the mind and the prana are firm and strong. And it is so strong, the two ankles and the two shanks, and fixing the three, that is, the two thighs and the ankles and the spine are fixed. It means a meditative posture, a relaxed and a meditative posture. And in the two knees, similarly, in the two thighs and the two made up of the anus and the male organs, the Muladhara, The fixing and withdrawal of three mentioned above should be made. Means the mind, the prana, and the subtlest form of the mind are withdrawn from these parts of the body. From the toes, from the feet, from the heels, from the ankles, from the calf muscles, from the knees, from the thighs, then from the buttocks, then from the hips, that is the Manipura region. Then withdraw the mind and the prana and allow it to flow into the nadis, the Sushumna nadi, surrounded by the Dashanadis, the Ida, the Pingala, and the others. And the Upanishad beautifully describes the astral, the mental, the psychological, the subtle form of ourself, various colors involved in that is also beautifully described by that. The various Varnas, Tatra, Raktacha, Pitacha, Krishna, Tamra, Vilohitaha, it calls it. The red, the yellow, the black, the copper, the brown, and so on. The subtler and the subtler dimensions. Slowly, as the prana and the mind are moving upwards, then the Dahara Pundarika in the Vedanta scriptures, as it was told, the red blood lotus. Then the prana and the mind are taken up to the Vishuddha Chakra. It is from the Mooladhara, Manipura, Swadhisthana, then the Anahata and into the Vishuddha it is, and Ajna and into the Sahasrara. As we are aware, the energy points, Shakti Bindus, then the Prana Bindus, pranic points, then the Nadi Bindus, the channels of the prana converging, meeting points of the channels of the prana from the Mooladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, then the Anahata, Vishuddha, Ajna, and the Sahasrara. Intertwining with the major three nadis, the Ida, the Pingala, and the Sushumna. And consciously, the prana and the mind is withdrawn from the lower parts of the body and consciously experiencing, feeling its flow into the subtler levels, subtler stages, subtler forms of our existence. And this is the pratyahara level, as it is withdrawing from the external and getting into the internal. Withdrawing from the gross, entering into the subtler, that is the pratyahara. Then the dharana, dhyana, and the samadhi. Manasastu param guhyam sutikshnam buddhi nirmalam. Padasyopari yan marmam tadupam nama chintayet. Manodharena tikshena yogamashritya nityashaha. Indra vajramiti proktam marma janghanu kuntaknakam. Tadhyana balayogena dharanabhi krantayet. ऊर्वोर् मध्ये तु संस्थाप्य मर्म प्राण विमोचनं चतुरभ्यास्य योगेन छिन्देद् अभिशङ्कितः ततः कंठान्तरे योगी समूहान् नाडी संचये एकोत्तरं नाडीशतं तासां मध्ये परास्थिराः. The practice of dharana has been explained in this beautifully. The various methods is all withdrawing from the body level and concentrating on the internal levels. This is the dharana. From the physical, emotional, even from the pranic level, the mind is withdrawn and consciously trained into the deeper and higher levels. That is the dharana, dhyana, and finally that is the samadhi level. Dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. We should all remember that this is a simple practice of a deep shavasana practice or an advanced shavasana practice, or even from the normal simple yoga nidra practice to a very deep advanced yoga nidra practice. All these levels and states of these practices, shades of these practices of shavasana, from the simple normal gross restful shavasana to a highly advanced meditative shavasana, from a simple relaxing and meditative yoga nidra practice to a very highly advanced practice of the yoga nidra practice is what is explained in the Kurika Upanishad. It is cutting off from all the attachments. It is cutting off from all with which we are associated. It is cutting off from all that we feel we are. And that is the practice. Kurika it is. This cutting, freeing ourselves. All the knots have been cut. Bhajyante hridaya grandhihi chhadyante sarva samshayaha, as the Upanishad puts it elsewhere. That is how the Kurika Upanishad, describing asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and finally the samadhi level, where even the prana awareness of the flow of prana and the mind, even in the sushumna, is withdrawn. It's all used as vehicles. And finally moves out, flows out, frees itself from all this. And that is the final level of the mind and the prana, freed from all the nadis, including the sushumna, and getting one with the all-pervading base and the root and the existence. That is the Brahman. In the pranayama methodology, it has been termed as the Brahmarandhra, it is called. Brahmi Sthiti, it has been described beautifully. And Yoga Sandhanam Tad Adhikaricha. And slowly, Shanaihi, Nishabdam, Deshamastitaha, Nissangaha, Sa Anga Yogangno, Nirapekshaha, Shanaihi. That is the 21st mantra, beautifully describes. Carefully, the mind has been taken through the Ashtanga Yoga into the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. It has been brought and placed or allowed to move to that particular state. Then Samadhi Phalam, the last mantras are about the fruits of the Samadhis. Gives another imagery here that like a hamsaha, like a swan breaking us under the lotus stalks, the roots of the lotus, without any hesitation, rises to the skies and cuts its bond. See beautifully, the swan which moves in the waters of the lotus pond raises from the waters, cuts the bondage of the lotus plants, even the stalks of the lotus roots, and flies away. This is how the mind and the prana flies into the akashaha, chidakashaha, brahmakashaha, and that is the explanation of samadhi given in the Kurika Upanishad. Beautiful imageries are given, wonderful techniques have been presented, an excellent methodology has been described, and also for all our normal practices, for our corrections in our asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana and dhyana, and even for the subtler layers of our practices, the Kurika Upanishad is extremely useful with its proposition to cut all our bondages and to be free, to be in the world of freedom. Let us learn more from other Upanishads and let us practice the techniques given in the Kshurika Upanishad. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.